Hello and welcome to UMD News for this hour. I'm Shimelis M. Gebremichael. In the headlines, Ethiopians express their dissatisfaction over provisions of the Pretoria peace deal. Ethiopian government and Tigray forces establish hotline following truce. AU Chief Mediator Olusegun Obasanjo made the revelation as both parties meet in Kenya to discuss implementing the truce. Latest reports reveal that the peace talk is also facing some challenge. In another development, UN official says peace agreement key for South Sudan stability. And now we'll move into the news in details. We invite you all to stay with the program. In the meantime, please do not forget to like and share our programs and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is UMD News with me, Shimelis M. Gebremichael, coming to you live via Horn Broadcasting Services, HBS, and via other social media outlets. First up, Ethiopians express their dissatisfaction over provisions of Pretoria peace deal. While many have celebrated the ceasefire agreement signed between the Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF and Ethiopian government in Pretoria, South Africa, some prominent Tigrayan groups see it as a surrender. In its opinion piece published on November 8, 2022, entitled "Who Can Trust the Ethiopian Peace Deal?" Arguments media states under the terms the TPLF will accept the return to the previous constitutional order, including federal authority in Tigray. The writer Mohammed Kahir Omer further elaborated that a new interim administration will govern the region until elections and the TPLF will fully disarm within 30 days, recognizing that Ethiopia has only one defense force. That is the arrangement. In return, the federal government has agreed to improve the representation of Tigray in federal institutions, including Parliament. It will expedite humanitarian aid to the region where over 13 million people need food assistance. It will facilitate the return of displaced communities, and it will restore essential services, some of which have been blocked since the outbreak of the conflict. Both sides also agree to end hostile propaganda, rhetoric, and hate speech and establish a new transitional justice policy to ensure accountability, redress for victims, and reconciliation, the report added. According to this publication, regional and international leaders have largely praised the deal, with the lead AU mediator Olusegun Obasanjo referring to it as the beginning of a new dawn for Ethiopia. The federal government has been similarly buoyant, with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed telling jubilant crowds that Ethiopia had got 100% of what it wanted. Some groups, however, have been less pleased. Several dominant Tigrayan groups have responded with disbelief and denial, seeing the deal as a surrender. The Global Society of Tigrayan Scholars and Professionals, GSTS, for instance, argued that the Ethiopian military cannot guarantee security and rejected the disarmament of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, otherwise called TDF. The network also criticized the ceasefire agreement for not calling on Eritrea forces to leave and lamented the lack of a clear timeline for facilitating aid, restoring services, and returning displaced people. Some Amhara groups who have also been engaged in conflict have been similarly critical and disappointed at not being included in the talks. The Fano militia denounced the agreement for endorsing the current constitution, which it sees as marginalizing Amhara interests. Meanwhile, a politician for the opposition National Movement of Amhara, in short called NEMA, complained that the deal does not recognize Amhara's claim to two areas, Walqait and Raya, that are heavily disputed with Tigray. Similarly, opinions and feedbacks, including scholars in Tigray who would like to remain anonymous for security reasons, approached by UMD media, expressed their dissatisfaction on the provisions of the peace deal. Authorities in Ethiopia, Amhara region, have also welcomed the ceasefire agreement between forces in neighboring Tigray and federal government, but they made no mention in a statement of territory seized during the 2-year-long war. These similar comments, alongside some messages from officials in Ma'ala, Addis Ababa, and Bahir Dar, are depicting that the peace deal is more of saving parties than working for the causes of the people, analysts told UMD media. Ethiopian government and Tigray forces established hotline following truce. AU chief mediator Olusegun Obasanjo made the revelation as both parties meet in Kenya to discuss implementing the truce. Latest reports also reveal that the peace talk is facing some challenge. The African Union's chief mediator Olusegun Obasanjo said on Monday, as both sides meet in Kenya for talks on implementing the ceasefire, the Ethiopian government and Tigray forces have established a telephone hotline following a strike last week. Representatives of Ethiopia's government and forces from Tigray are in Kenyan capital Nairobi to discuss how to begin implementing the ceasefire, with the talks expected to last 3 or 4 days. Obasanjo told in his conference in Nairobi that the first sign for me of the progress after the signing of the agreement is the fact that between them they have exchanged a hotline. According to an official familiar with the talks, the hotline will address any flare-up in fighting and coordinate disagreements, with both sides recognizing the challenge of fully communicating with all their units to stop fighting. In a press release, the AU said the expected outcomes of the meeting include modalities for silencing the guns, humanitarian access, and the restoration of services in Tigray region. Latest report from Nairobi, Kenya, are depicting that the peace talk is facing some challenge because of some disagreements among the military leaders of the two parties. According to some sources, the disagreement emanates on the ways and means of expelling the Eritrean and Amhara forces from Tigray and on the disarmament of the Tigray military forces. Latest information and more developments regarding this matter will be reached out to you from UMD Media, as our sources from Nairobi reveals to us. In another development from East Africa, UN official says peace agreement is key for South Sudan stability. The United Nations Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, has acknowledged the positive steps made in the implementation of South Sudan's revitalized peace deal, but said more should be done. He made the remarks at the start of his 4-day visit to the world's newest nation. Lacroix said there have been positive steps forward in the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, but much more needs to be done. He added, "We are here to encourage further progress in the implementation of the peace deal because it is the political framework which offers hope for South Sudan to achieve more stability." Lacroix, accompanied by Chief de Cabinet of the Secretary General Courtney Rattray, made key political encounters the UN family, civil society, diplomats, and donors. The senior UN official's visit comes months after parties to the peace accord agreed on a roadmap to push forward outstanding benchmarks containing within the 2018 agreement. On Monday, we have briefed on the current state of play by senior leaders from the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, including the UN peacekeeping mission's support to ensure a robust, competitive political process that lead to free, fair, and credible elections, making an end to the country's extended transitional period. Lacroix also interacted with humanitarian partners as well as the donor communities in the country, where he stressed the need for continued support from international friends. About 7.78 million people, according to Integrated Food Security Classification, shortly named as IPC, are likely to face acute food insecurity during the April-July 2023 lean season, while 1.4 million children will be malnourished due to floods, climate change, and conflict. The IPC was jointly released by the World Food Programme, WFP, Food and Agricultural Organization FAO, and UN Children Fund, UNICEF. Well, dear listeners and viewers, with that, we come to the end of the news for today. This has been UMD Media News with me, Shimelis M. Gebremichael. UMD Media programs comes to you via Horn Broadcasting Services HBS and through different social media outlets like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please do not forget to like and share our programs and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching and have a good one.